The terminal was dead. Every IP address was blacklisted. Every ghost account was purged. I sat in the dark, looking at the glowing red Error 403 forbidden messages on my monitors. The platform's immune system had won. They had crushed my automated toll booths in a matter of minutes. The massive dual Xeon machine hummed in the corner, a powerful engine with nowhere to drive. An ordinary man would have panicked. He would have felt defeated. But I didn't feel defeat. I opened my bank application on my phone. The balance stared back at me. $4,279. The algorithms had destroyed my accounts, but they couldn't touch the money I had already extracted. The wealth had crossed the border from the digital matrix into my physical reality. The concept was proven. The blood was in the water. I didn't need to surrender. I needed to mutate. I opened the encrypted file and decrypted log 04. The Hydra Protocol. The architect's words appeared on the screen, cold and absolute. The amateur builds a castle, the text read. He operates from a single IP address. He uses a single browser. He leaves a massive digital footprint. When the system detects the anomaly, it simply bombs the castle. One strike, and the amateur is wiped out. The architect does not build castles. He builds the Hydra. In ancient mythology, the Hydra was a serpent. If you cut off one of its heads, 2 more would grow in its place. It could not be killed by brute force because it was not a single entity. It was a decentralized nightmare. The digital landlords think they have banned you. They think they tracked your browser fingerprint, your hardware ID, and your connection. They believe they have locked the gate. They are celebrating a false victory. I leaned forward, the red glare of the monitors reflected in my eyes. To defeat the algorithm, the architect commanded, you must shatter your identity. You must become 1,000 different people, logging in from 1,000 different cities, using 1,000 different devices. You must wear the skin of the herd. I was about to learn how to forge digital passports. I was about to build the Hydra. The amateur thinks clearing his cookies and turning on a $10 VPN makes him invisible. The architect wrote. It is a child hiding under a blanket, thinking the monster can't see him. Every time you connect to the matrix, you bleed data. The system reads your screen resolution, your operating system, your font cache, your audio drivers, even the way your mouse moves. This unique combination is your digital fingerprint. When you deployed your army from a single machine, you left the exact same fingerprint 1,000 times. You didn't just walk into the bank vault. You handed the security algorithms a map to your front door. To survive the purge, I had to learn the dark art of fingerprint spoofing. I stopped using standard browsers. I dove back into the deep web and acquired a military-grade anti-detect browser. It was a piece of software designed specifically to shatter identity. It allowed me to create hundreds of completely isolated virtual environments on my single dual Xeon server. In Profile 01, the system would tell the Matrix I was a graphic designer in London using a high-end MacBook Pro. In Profile 02, I was a retired man in Texas browsing on a cheap Android tablet. In Profile 03, I was a college student in Seoul. My machine was generating completely fake hardware IDs, fake screen resolutions, and fake software environments. But faking the device wasn't enough. The connection itself had to be flawless. If all these fake devices connected from my apartment's IP address, the system would instantly flag the anomaly. Data center proxies were useless. The platform's security bots recognized and blocked server IP addresses on site. The architect's log provided the ultimate camouflage: residential proxies. I didn't buy connections from a server farm. I bought access to a decentralized network of actual, physical home internet connections. I was paying to route my traffic through a smart TV in Chicago, a home Wi-Fi router in Tokyo, a teenager's laptop in Berlin. My bots were no longer an invading army. They were wearing the digital skin of ordinary, innocent civilians. I spent the next 12 hours building the Hydra. I spun up 50 new virtual profiles. Each profile was a ghost, wrapped in a unique fingerprint, hiding behind a dedicated residential IP address with no digital connection to the others. I loaded the AI-generated pain points back into the system. I connected the phantom product checkout links. I hovered my mouse over the execution terminal. If the platform's immune system found one of these accounts, they would ban it. They would cut off one head. But they would have absolutely no way to trace it back to the other 49. The mutation was complete. I pressed enter, and the Hydra slipped silently into the dark water. The fatal flaw of the amateur is greed, the architect warned in the logs. When he finds a working system, he forces it to sprint until its bones break. He wants to extract all the wealth in a single day, and in his rush, he wakes the guards. I watched the Hydra go to work. This time, there was no chaotic flood of green code. There was no massive spike in traffic. It was a slow, deliberate, agonizingly patient drip. I had programmed the bots with a new directive: mimic the inefficiency of a human. Profile 14 logged into a financial survival forum from a residential IP in Ohio. It didn't post the phantom product immediately. It scrolled. It paused to read. It clicked like on a random, irrelevant comment. It simulated the hesitant, erratic movements of a human hand on a mouse. It let the account age. Only after 30 minutes of perfect camouflage did it inject the AI-generated story of despair and drop the link. I knew the platform's security algorithms were patrolling the gates. I knew they were scanning every request for anomalies. But when the system's spotlight hit Profile 14, it didn't see an automated predator operating from a server farm. The security AI checked the IP address, a verified home network in Ohio. It checked the digital fingerprint, a standard iPad running Safari. It analyzed the behavior, reading for 3 minutes, typing slowly, correcting a spelling mistake. The algorithm classified the profile as a low-risk human. The gatekeepers smiled, opened the door, and let the wolf right into the sheep pen. The first notification came at 9:14 p.m. Payment received, $299. I didn't celebrate. I stared at the terminal. I waited for the ban. I waited for the IP to be blacklisted. I waited for the red error to bleed across the screen like it had the day before. The red error never came. The system remained perfectly stable. 14 minutes later, Profile 32, masquerading as a graphic designer in London, made a kill on a different forum. Payment received, $299. Still no alarms. The platform was blind, and the true beauty of the Hydra Protocol was that even if a moderator manually reviewed a post and banned Profile 32, it meant absolutely nothing. The ban would be an isolated event in London. The other 49 heads of the Hydra didn't share the same IP, the same browser footprint, or the same digital universe. the beast would simply shed the dead skin and grow a new head. I leaned back in my chair. The dual Xeon server was silent, doing the heavy lifting in the dark. I wasn't just extracting money anymore. I was defeating billion-dollar security algorithms from a cheap apartment. I had become invisible. And an invisible predator is the most dangerous thing in the world. The next 48 hours were a blur of green notifications. The Hydra was fully operational. I had completely decentralized the extraction process. By Sunday night, the balance in my offshore account had crossed $12,000. The platform's security bots were still aggressively patrolling the forums, but they were blind to the ghosts. They were locking the front door of the bank while I was quietly draining the vault from 1,000 different microscopic holes in the floor. I didn't sleep. The adrenaline had replaced my need for rest. Monday morning arrived. It was raining. I put on my cheap suit and took the crowded subway to the financial district. I walked into the gray building, rode the elevator to the 14th floor, and sat in my cubicle. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, exactly like they had every day for the last 3 years. Everything looked exactly the same, but reality had shifted. At 10 a.m., my manager walked over to my desk. He was a man who had traded his youth, his health, and his soul to a corporation that would replace him before his funeral if he died tomorrow. He dropped a thick stack of spreadsheets in front of me. "I need these audited by the end of the day," he barked, his voice dripping with the pathetic authority of middle management. "If you want to survive the upcoming budget cuts, you need to show some loyalty to this company. Put in the hours. Prove you want to be here." While he was speaking, my phone pulsed silently in my pocket. Payment received. $299. Payment received. $299. 2 heads of the Hydra had just secured another kill. In the 30 seconds, my manager stood there demanding my loyalty for $15 an hour. My ghost army had extracted almost $600 from the Matrix. I looked up at him. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel anxiety. I didn't feel the crushing fear of losing my job. I didn't even feel anger. I felt pure, absolute pity. He was trapped in the inventory trap. He was the peasant trading his sweat to build someone else's castle. He believed the walls of this office were the boundaries of the world. He had no idea what was happening in the dark space between the servers. "Well," he snapped, "are you listening to me?" "Yes," I said quietly. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't try to explain the Phantom product, the dual Xeon processors, or the Hydra Protocol. You cannot explain the ocean to a man who has spent his entire life living in a puddle. I slowly stood up. I took off my cheap tie and dropped it on top of the spreadsheets. I placed my plastic employee ID badge next to it. I turned around and walked down the aisle, past the rows of terrified workers staring blankly at their monitors. I walked out of the glass doors, stepped into the elevator, and pressed the button for the lobby. The heavy metal doors closed, shutting out the buzzing fluorescent lights forever. I was out of the cage. The extraction engine was perfect. I was completely free. But as the elevator descended, a new, far more dangerous thought entered my mind. If you can build a machine to extract wealth, what happens when you decide to stop hiding in the shadows and start buying the Matrix itself? End of log 04. If you are listening to this and you are ready to walk out of the cage, type "I am free" in the comments. Subscribe to Tedu OS. The real game is about to begin.